Abstract management system. Josh, if you would go to the second slide, please.
All right, we're there.
Switch chat. Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to pull up my, because I think because
Jane, we may have lost your audio.
time.
Can you, I can hear you now, yes.
Camera. The mountains and the activity is terrible. So if there are questions during the webinar, we have muted everybody as soon as you've joined. So you can either chat or hold your questions until the Q&A session, which will be at the end of the presentation. If we don't get to your questions during Q&A, we'll follow up via email afterwards, and we'll have a link to the recording and the slides that will be sent whether they were in attendance or not afterwards. So the agenda is pretty simple. I'll be providing an introduction, and we'll be going through use. There are 6 of them total: canceling in-person and just publishing, canceling an in-person event and publishing with additional content, canceling an in-person event and move presentations to another meeting, postponing an in-person event with uncertain timelines, transitioning an in-person event to a virtual event, and that just uncertain about a future in-person event. So with that, I'd just like to say a couple words before we start. First of all, on behalf of our entire team, I want to extend our sincere thanks to every one of you who has made the time to join us today. I don't think it's to be disputed that this is an unprecedented time in our world, and I just want to ask that we pause for just a couple seconds to allow that to sink in. This is the first time in the Earth's history that most of its population is sequestered either through governmental decree or this is the first time in history that scientists and global governments are able to confer easily and share information regarding a global pandemic in real time and over time from the very get-go. And the time in Earth's history that our industry is in a state of chaos, mass cancellation of meetings all over the globe. Our purpose here today is to present information that we hope may help you to confirm decisions that your society's already made or may assist in making future decisions. We're here because we've spent time over the last couple of weeks educating ourselves on how your canceled meetings or those to do about within the next 3 to 9 months can best be repurposed, if you will, in one of several ways. This is a sales pitch, nor do we have all the answers. In fact, it's quite likely. During our Q&A time, at the conclusion of the presentation, you may ask a question we don't have any answers for. If that's the case, we'll regroup and get back to the group with what we feel is a logical, correct conclusion. It seems to be the mantra for the time we're in, and I think it applies more than ever. We truly are in this together. And with that said, allow me to introduce Josh Dahl, the Project Director of ScholarOne Abstract, who will walk you through managing COVID-19 within your abstract management system. Josh.
Thank you, Jane. And I'm going to take that. Yes. Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah. Thank you all. And this was something that, put together fairly quickly. Obviously, all of you are feeling the impact of the current global crisis that's happening. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today was really part of discussions that we've been having with you already. As Jane said, we don't have all the answers. There are plenty of other places that are talking about, kind of broader impact for the event space, monetization of virtual events, other aspects of this. And we'll leave it to those experts to provide those sorts of tips and venues for sharing. These are just 2 examples of webinars that I attended last week that were from consultants and others in the space talking about this. So definitely, this is not a comprehensive, exhaustive list of what to do with the event, but we just wanted to share some of the things that we've been working with our customers, with you, over the course of the last few weeks in responding to the crisis. So this is going to be a pretty practical webinar. We're going to be talking about some specific things done in the system, following the guidelines of having different use cases that you may be considering for your events. And so we'll be talking about things in the system that can help you when you're considering those different use cases. Again, if there's questions, we'll have a Q&A at the end. But without further ado, we'll jump into the first use case. So one of the things that we've heard from a number of you is that, your event, short time, the next month, or already happened, and you're just canceling, and you're just moving ahead with publishing what you have so far. So one of the considerations here is that, obviously there's communication that needs to happen. And for those of you that are familiar with this tool, there's a tool called speaker management, which we'll talk about a couple of times throughout this presentation. But it's a way to communicate with your speakers. It provides an easy to set up templating system, so you can assign different templates to your speakers. And not only that, you can also collect information back from those speakers. So one of the things, if you're just canceling and you're just publishing what you have, one of the considerations you may want to make is whether or not you need to collect an opt-in from those presenters who may have accepted, may have been set to present at your in-person meeting, but now there's no in-person meeting. And so they may want to be able to publish elsewhere or submit that elsewhere. And so this is one way that you can use the system to collect that sort of opt-in from those presenters. So you can assign templates to each presenter. The templates can be set up with a question, such as an opt-in question here. And that'll allow you to collect that response from the presenter and track whether or not they're going to participate. How you handle that, whether they're actually withdrawn, whether just our team works with you to set up an export that excludes people who have opted out. That's something that we're standing by to work with you on this. But this is just one of the options to consider as you're thinking about moving forward with just publishing what you accepted for the conference. The other thing to point out is, again, if you're just publishing and you want to provide authors with an option to withdraw, even in the late stages, that's something that's available in the system. So that can be set up where the authors have the ability to come in and withdraw. And so as part of your communications with those authors and presenters, you can direct them to the system. They can withdraw their abstract, and you can even supply a reason. Obviously, the reason in this case would be that the presentations in person is not happening, but this is a way that you can collect, come in and withdraw their presentations. Another use case we've been...
Possible to ask a quick question about...
Yeah, please. Go on, Josh.
About withdrawing?
Yes.
Is there a time... this is Josh from ACS. I've experienced that the author withdrawal stops working once the final paper IDs have been assigned. Is that what is expected, or should this be available through the entire sort of life cycle of the program?
Good question, Josh. I've got, luckily, other people that are quite familiar with the system. I don't know, Kim or John or Sarah, any of you have some insight for Josh on this?
It's expected. So once there's a final ID or the session is finalized, you have to go to the session to withdraw it.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So next use case, you've got an in-person event that you are canceling, and you are deciding to publish with some additional content. And that additional content could vary quite a bit. You know, we've talked with customers who are just collecting slides and poster files. There could also be full papers, or you could even be collecting video presentations pre-recorded in some cases. So again, one of the other pieces about speaker management, in addition to being able to collect different questions, you know, present virtually as a you can also collect files, other things from those speakers directly. So this can be a place that, again, you've got your program built in ScholarOne. You can use the speaker management capabilities to send out additional notices and collect additional content from those speakers. And again, this is all available to report on. So you can find out how many people have chosen to use these options. And also, you can export all of this, which I'll show you in a moment. There's also a feature in the system called that allows you to open the submission for edits for accepted and sessioned authors for a period of time. And so this is another way that we've talked with some customers about using the system to open up submission again for a period so that they can collect, again, the same sorts of questions that you might through speaker management on the submission directly. And so for the author, this appears as an option in their their submission role. It'll show the edit submission option. And again, that gives them access to make certain changes to that particular presentation. Again, it could be uploading a file. It could be providing a link to a virtual presentation, YouTube or other sorts of video streaming services. And so again, it's a fairly lightweight way to collect some additional content. And as I mentioned, all of that is exportable. So we've got different exports in the system that can be set up that allow you to share this information with others in the world. And so we also wanted to talk about, and I'm going to hand this over to Dean Bedford, who's the president of Plant Systems Group. Plant Systems Group is a partner that we work with, and they've also been working with some using one of the products that they have on hoping to kind of retrofit it for a conference. Sharing, hand it over to Dean and give us a quick overview of that.
Okay, so the first thing is I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
Hear you? Yep.
Okay, now the second thing is, can you see my screen? Right now that would be Josh.
You're a presenter.
Yeah.
You should be a presenter now, so you should have a share option.
Okay, stand by for a second. And where would that be?
On the main WebEx screen, there's or across the top, there's a share. There's a menu.
Yeah, share content.
Perfect.
Okay, now I go here. Okay, so can you guys see the orange screen with welcome to SPR?
It's still saying it's there. I see your death. There we go. I'm seeing it. So I'm assuming it's moving through.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see me or not. My room's a mess, but hello everybody, and thank you for the opportunity. I'll spend literally only about 3 minutes on this so we can move forward. This is Abstract Archives, which is an application that basically has its ethos in Abstract Central. Once the submissions are tended to, we can take everything out of Abstract Archives, I'm sorry, Abstract Central, the XML files that they export, and we import it into Abstract Archives. I would like to say, first of all, I don't see Jessica on here, but I want to thank the Society of Pediatric Radiation because they are allowing us to use their live site to present here. So we import the XML into Abstract Archives. We immediately index all the information so it makes for a fast searching ability. There are mainly two ways to get to the information. The first thing that you can do is to basically click here and look at the meetings and dig down into the information. and find what you're looking for and come to the detail of the information. The second way to do that would be with the searching. We have, the advanced searching. We can do something like keyword of pet, which is big in radiology. Search, and boom. And then you have a list of all the abstracts associated. The good thing about abstract archives is it's an aggregation of information over many meetings. So you can see here with ThreadRed, they have 4 meetings currently in there. Now, one of the things I really would like to make a point about and compliment, as we're moving forward, we're always adding to the application. I wish Jessica was on here because we have high compliments to her, and there's some people from IADR to pass compliments along to, because they're always asking for, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? Well, one of the things here, you'll actually see how it says poster archives. That's because Jessica said, hey, can we put the posters in there? And at the time, we were still going to be having meetings live. This was long before the coronavirus. But you can see now, you can click on the information, and there you have the live information. So we're actually working to develop the ability to present the archives, the abstracts like we're at a meeting, but virtually. That's because of the unfortunate reality, which I think Jane did a beautiful job of representing. We're in uncharted territory here, and we think that we can maybe help out with having doctors and authors meet together and stuff. So that is that's Abstract Archives, and as you see, it's poster archives now for this particular client, and we want to thank our clients as always, because they're always giving wonderful input that helps us make better products. So I hope that's good. And at the end of this session, please know that Slaja Matic, who is our product manager, is also on the call, and she will also be available along with me for questions and answer session. Josh, back to you. I hope that worked.
That was good. Thank you. Yeah, and again, kind of the point here is, this is there are options if you're looking to publish additional content. Dean and team have worked with some of our customers on poster and other types of archives, but once you've collected the content, there's likely numerous options for you to get that content published along with the program itself. So another use case that we've been discussing with some of our customers, wanting to provide options to move it might be a few, be another smaller meeting that you've got here, but you want to provide some ability to port those submissions over. So there are two different ways that we have discussed using the system for this. So one is there's a capability called, there's a feature called stubs. Stubs are essentially presentations that can be loaded directly into a session. Would be, you've got your new meeting that you're launching. Let's just for the case of argument, it's later in the year, Q1 2021. You've collected some opt-in from presenters that they want to move to the next meeting. And so this would give you a way to essentially import those presentations into sessions on the new meeting site as stubs. It's not going to pull over all of the details for that particular submission, but it'll allow you to basically set it up and import, a number of details so that it can be represented in the program. Again, there's certain features of this that you can work with the client implementation team that you've already worked with. They're there to consult with you and to the best way to use this. Presentations, though, once they're in the session, can be reordered, given a time, etc., on that future meeting. Another thing that you may want to do is you may want to import abstracts that the author can complete the submission on. So we have an abstract import option. again, this is not for everything. So custom questions and some other things may need to be filled out, but it will transfer, a lot of that particular abstract. And so you can use this to move abstracts from one meeting to another using the tools in the system. And the authors will then have the option to come into the system at the time that submissions open and complete that. So if there are additional questions that you have asked, if there are other things that you want to collect, they can come in and complete that submission here. So another use case that we're working with some customers on is, you're postponing, you don't know about the timelines in the future. So just a reminder in case, are probably very familiar with this, but custom emails are in the system. They can be used not just for decision notifications or to send out the invitation to your reviewers, but also for any types of communication. And so the templates can be set up. You can create as many templates as you need. These templates can have tag, have standard language or data from the system. But this is there for you to provide a way to communicate pretty easily with everyone who's in the system. And once those templates are set up, you'll have options to target who you want to send that to. So you can send different notifications to different types of presenters based on the type of session that they're in or other aspects of the system. So this is a way that you can, again, just get easy way to send out communications to kind of keep people apprised of what's happening. Transitioning an in-person event to a virtual event, this is a focus of a lot of the discussion these days. Certainly that was two of the webinars that I pointed out. They were largely talking about this because this is, I think, for everyone, this has the most kind of challenges logistically and the most uncertainty because it hasn't really been done at scale, but it also provides the most possible way to kind of transition some of the value that you get from an in-person event to people who would attend. And so today, again, we're not going to talk the virtual event space, but we thought it would be useful to get another perspective from our friends over at Ative Software. So we've partnered with Event Pilot in the past, and they're going to talk a little bit about things that they've been doing to help find a way to transition using systems that you're already used to using. So I'm going to share another deck. One moment. And Silke Fleischer, the co-founder for Ative, is going to talk about this.
Hey Josh, I hope you can see my video. It's not associated to the audio because I'm using two different systems here. But I think if you scroll around, you might see it as well. Thanks for. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you perfectly. And can you see the screen?
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you. Yeah, as Jane said, this is a very challenging time for everyone working with events, and we all have to basically reinvent how we work, hold events, keep the scientific exchange going. And the last 2 weeks have been pretty crazy and a scramble for clients just canceling their events left and right. But what we're seeing is that canceled meetings over the next 3 to 6 weeks have a little bit more time to plan and transition to virtual alternatives. Maybe not the entire event, but even quite a big chunk of those events. So we're part of a lot of that planning. Lots of discussions are going on. And regardless if you're planning a virtual meeting or a hybrid conference, you already have a great technology foundation through the My Itinerary event app. All your sessions, your speakers, your searchable abstracts, your vendors, your sponsors, everything is already in the app. And basically with the push of a button, it gets pulled in. So everything is right there. Plus you have a web version, a desktop version to complete all the ways your attendees would want to access your content. But now to move to virtual, and Josh, if you could go to the next slide, you can layer on top of this existing platform. Now, of course, the first and simplest step is by adding the additional content Josh was showing earlier. So from your speakers, you could collect PDFs, or PDFs of the e-posters. You can add links to the pre-recorded sessions you mentioned. Um, Even when you work with your exhibitors, ask your exhibitors to give you links to demo videos, YouTube videos. I'm sure they have those. And then in the app itself, there's a built-in session commenting feature where you can have a discussion going with the speaker. And all of that is just fully built in, and it's semi-private, so it's within your event. Now, if you have existing webinar software at your organization, such in this case, we're using WebEx here today, you can probably take care of a lot of the session recording yourself with your speakers. So you don't necessarily have to go out, hire expensive consultants. There's probably a lot you can do. And it's also, it's great when the speaker has a webcam, but ultimately in our field, it's really about what the speaker has to say, show their slides. It's about the research that they need to communicate. Now, take it a step further, and you can add that live component. So all the standard tools can work here for you, from WebEx to Zoom to GoToMeeting. And actually, over the last 2 weeks, our developers have been working very, very, very hard to automate all those manual setups for tools like Zoom. So you don't even have to manually create and update those kind of sessions. So think of it as a push of a button. We have a client with an event in about 3 weeks, and they're going to be offering nearly 70 virtual sessions over 4 days using this. So all of this gets created, it gets managed for them. So again, it takes a lot of stress away, and you can now focus on actually working with your speakers, training them to using these tools. And the other benefit of these tools is they allow you to record. So you can monetize on these recordings after your meeting. You're probably already dealing with a lot of cancellations. So at least now when you have recordings, there are other ways you can use them. And finally, on the top layer, if you have enough time for planning and some creative approaches, you can use virtual options for networking or the expo. Like think of a networking round table that you can set up with tools like Zoom, where you can see up to 50 people at the same time with their webcams on. Of course, you can mute them all like in this webinar, but there's a lot more interaction that can happen there. So again, this can be done using existing and proven web conferencing tools. You don't have to go out and, go with something unproven, unknown, maybe very expensive, and taking advantage of the situation. So we also actually have a client who is planning 100 mentoring sessions with students. So it's like small sessions, but are all done through basically web conferencing tools. Exhibitors can add demo sessions, live online presentations, or you can even ask them to give you their own virtual meeting room link and just embed that in your app ecosystem. So it's all right there. Even during expo hours now, they would staff their virtual meeting room instead of the booth. It's about connecting the attendees with your sponsors and exhibitors, and that's definitely something you can do using a virtual approach. And Josh, if you can jump to the next slide, just to show the attendee experience can also be very, very seamless. So again, your event app can act as your virtual meeting hub. And in this example, you see just a button, join virtual presentation. And on the next slide, we have a little animation, how simple and seamless it would be. So let's see if it plays. You click on the join virtual meeting, and here Zoom is installed. It fires up Zoom and jumps right into the presentation. Again, very, very easy. And, with people working from home, they'll appreciate having a native app and grabbing their iPad, watching from their garden or balcony instead of now being stuck in their home office. It might be in the basement. Or they can just as well access the content from your computer or from their computer. And what's also nice is about these systems is that you can add authentication and limit the virtual sessions to only logged in users who are registered to access this content. Again, it's about minimizing losses there, generating some revenue for your event. And on the last slide, I have just a quick summary of a list of benefits transitioning to a virtual or hybrid meeting. It's of course not exactly the same as your live event, but it's an excellent alternative for speakers and attendees who cannot be there in person, or if you have to cancel. It just really gives you a chance to still hold your event. And it's ultimately also a unique learning opportunity for adding a hybrid component to your future meetings once COVID-19 is over. So I think that covers it from my side. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks. We have a question. I figure while we're here, and there was a question about seeing an example of the workflow for integration with Zoom or WebEx. So you maybe just talk a little bit more about kind of how it is now, and then what you're working on for those integrations and creating those virtual event links.
Yeah, so basically what we have done with Zoom has a really good API actually. And if you are a Zoom subscriber, what we can do is generate all these meetings for you. So basically part of the workflow would be to, in the abstract management system, tag all the events that you want to be virtual. And then based on that tag, our system triggers on that and generates your meeting in Zoom. The other thing is, for those of you who are familiar with working with webinars, you probably know about the host concept. And a host is basically the license that you're paying for on a monthly basis. And here, in this case, you only need to use it or need it for 1 month. But the number of host licenses you need would need to match the number of concurrent sessions you have. Because while one host can have multiple consecutive sessions, they cannot have multiple concurrent. So you need a host or license for each. And our system also already takes care of that there's nothing overlapping, that sessions end and host licenses get freed up for the next sessions to start. So that's all part of the CMS. You would have access to that. But basically, between ScholarOne bringing in the data, defining which sessions are going to be virtual, then our system takes care of the rest, working with your Zoom subscription and generating all these meetings, updating them, emailing the hosts with the host keys so they can actually claim the meeting and be the host and present. So you don't have to have, hosts or staff sitting around. Of course, you can if you want to do that, but there are lots of options here available. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Soka. All right, so we will transition back over. Let me stop sharing this. Other deck. All right. So just, and then we'll pause for Q&A. But obviously there's not just the impact for events right now that you've got in the next 3-4 months. There's also just uncertainty about even longer term than that. What does the fall and winter look like if you've got events planned in that time period or you're planning to postpone? So one of the things we've worked with a number of customers on right now, as is kind of the general rule of thumb, most of your submissions are going to come in the last couple of days or a week. So go ahead and plan now to give yourself as much time as possible and shrink those dates. And so obviously you can set the dates, and we've had a number of customers that have shrunk the dates quite a bit just to provide additional time for planning. And even things like getting messaging correct on the site, making sure that they've got kind of a list of contingency plans that they're working on. Another thing is to go ahead and start asking now during submission questions that will set you for later. So questions about whether or not the presenter will present virtually if the event is canceled, because there's that uncertainty. So these are questions that you can set up, questions around whether or not they previously submitted to a conference that was canceled. So these are things that you can do to collect additional information from your authors if you're opening. But again, you're a little bit more able to or willing to present virtually, that sort of thing. By any means, this was a culmination of our implementation team working with many of you and others that around things you're doing to kind of help use the system to prepare hopefully this was helpful, but now I wanted to open up the floor for Q&A. Any other questions from any of you? And you can either unmute yourself and ask the question. There's also the chat option. No issues there, as we saw earlier. So.
Hey Josh, this is Marla from MRS. So if we decide to move abstracts from one conference to another conference, there's that abstract fee in our contract. Is that waived, or how are you handling charging for the abstracts?
Yeah, we'll definitely work with customers on a case-by-case basis. So just reach out to us if you're moving abstracts to another conference in the future. Yeah, as I said, we're taking all of that into consideration and working with you to make sure you're not getting double charged.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Just one thing I'd point out is there are things on here that you're not using currently, things like speaker management. Again, reach out to our teams. Our teams are more than happy to set you up so that you can start to use some of those capabilities.
Hey, Josh, it's Marilyn Stoltz from ACERS. We have a meeting that was scheduled in May that is already rescheduled to August. And I think I've figured out all the steps I need to take to set up a new program and transfer all of the sessions, scheduled sessions, excuse me, to the new date. Is there anywhere that the steps are spelled out so that this is the first time having done this, in 15 years. Just want to be sure I'm not missing anything.
Absolutely. And this is where the team that we have in place, I would schedule a walkthrough. One of the goals is, as we're starting to kind of get some more formality, more customers that are doing things, wanting to do things consistently, we'll definitely put together more detailed guides on how to do this. But for right now, reach out to the teams, reach out to the implementation team, and we can absolutely walk you through that. Make sure that you're not missing anything. That's what the team's there for, is to help make sure that you're getting the most out of the system and that you're doing everything you need to do.
Thank you.
Any questions for either our teams here? Of course, we've got the ScholarOne implementation here, but also we've got Silka and Dean, if you guys have general questions about any of those.
Hi, Josh. This is Jenny with SCG, and I have a quick question. Our submission is currently open. We extended it to April 15th, but I like some of the questions, those opt-in to publish without presenting. With our submission process already open and we have about 100 submissions at this point, can we add additional questions at this time?
You can, yeah. And so you won't have the responses of authors, but you easily send an email out to those authors now to let them know that, and then again, either ask them to come back in and answer that because you added it, or collect the responses outside the system and put those into the system. But definitely you can add questions during the submission period. Probably the easiest way, though, I'm guessing the way that our team would recommend, is drop the question in, make it required, and then send an email out to those people that already submitted and ask if they would either come back in or just indicate whether they'd be able to do, present virtually, that sort of thing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hi, this is Josh from ACS. So as we're postponing, canceling, and changing plans for all these meetings, we're getting a lot of requests internally from our team to get sort of regular reports. And I was wondering if there was a way to automate the running of our data exports, to do that on a daily basis, or to do it at exactly the same time every day. For instance, as we're tracking withdrawals and reinstatements and things like that. To make an accurate count, we need to do that at exactly the same time every day. And I'm curious if there's a way on our end to set up reports or searches to run on a schedule.
Yeah, I'll maybe defer to the team. This is so you can run reports from the system to kind of get counts for things and other sorts of tracking things that you need to have it consistently every day at the same time.
Yeah, just as an example, tracking the state of withdrawals through a given day, that can change moment to moment. So it would be helpful to get that, at 11:59 every day, as opposed to whenever I happen to log on in the morning.
Yeah. That's something, we can. We don't have that capability now to schedule that to run at that time, but I think that's something, we can talk about that offline and see if there's a way that we can do that with some of the team. I think that's something, being able to have snapshots like that, if there's a particular need, and I'm assuming this is a need that probably others have, then we can look at how we can try and automate some of that.
Great, thanks.
Other questions? And not just for us either, but if there's, this is a whole a community of people that are going through the similar situation as you might be. So if there are questions you have just to pose to the group, feel free to put those out here as well. If you do have questions and you think of them afterwards, reach out to us directly. We'll be happy to answer those via email. And again, thank you for all your time. Again, we know that this is a very trying time for everyone in the event space. What you're doing is extremely important, though, and we're here to help. Let us know if we can do anything, if there's things that we can do to help you respond better. So thanks you all for your time, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Josh.